They smile in public, but behind closed doors, something inside them is quietly falling apart. They don't know why they can't move on, why every song, every silence, every moment pulls them back to you. And that is not coincidence. That is your consciousness speaking directly to their soul. There is a person in your life, and no matter how much distance stands between you, something in them refuses to let you go. Not because of logic, not because of reason, but because consciousness has no walls. And right now, in the silence of their mind, they are calling your name. There is a person sitting somewhere right now, not at peace, not truly smiling, not fully present in the room they are standing in. And you know who I am talking about. You have felt it. That quiet knowing that lives somewhere deep in your chest. The feeling that no matter what is happening on the surface, something between you and this person is still very much alive, still breathing, still moving. But let me tell you what is actually happening inside them right now. They are breaking, not loudly, not dramatically. They are not sitting in a corner crying with tears running down their face. No, this breaking is quieter than that. It is the kind of breaking that happens in ordinary moments. When a song comes on and they go still. When they pick up their phone, scroll to your name, and then put it back down without pressing call. When they are surrounded by people, laughing, talking, and yet somewhere in the middle of all that noise, they feel completely alone. That is the breaking I am speaking of. And I want you to understand something. This is not weakness. This is not them being emotional or irrational. What is happening inside your specific person right now is something far deeper than human logic can explain. Their soul is restless. You see the surface of a person, their behavior, their silence, their distance. That is never the full story. Beneath every wall they have built, beneath every excuse they have made, beneath every attempt to move forward and feel nothing, there is an inner world. And in that inner world, something is happening that they themselves do not fully understand. They think about you when they do not mean to. They compare. Every person they meet, every moment of connection they try to build with someone else, somewhere in the back of their mind, there is a measurement happening. And nothing quite reaches what they feel when they think of you. Nothing quite fills that specific space that only your presence ever filled. And so they sit with it. This quiet, unexplainable ache that they cannot name. They call it confusion. They call it nostalgia. They call it moving on. But deep inside, in that place where no one else is allowed, they know exactly what it is. It is you. Now listen to me very carefully, because this is where most people miss it entirely. You look at their silence and you call it rejection. You look at their distance and you call it indifference. You look at the fact that they have not reached out and you tell yourself a story, that they have forgotten you, that they have moved on, that what you had meant nothing. But that is the surface. That is the illusion. The truth, the real truth, is that a person who feels nothing does not break. A person who has truly moved on does not go still when your name comes up. A person who no longer carries you does not reach for their phone at midnight and stop themselves at the last second. Their silence is not emptiness. Their silence is a war between what they think they should do and what every single part of them is pulling them toward. And what are they being pulled toward? You already know the answer. They are being pulled back to you. Not because of something you did or said recently, not because of any outer action you have taken, but because of something that operates far beyond the physical world. Because consciousness has no walls, because what lives in you is already living in them. And that silent breaking you sense in them, that restlessness, that ache, that inability to truly let go, that is not their weakness. That is your power. And when you truly understand that power, not as a concept, not as something you read and nod your head at, but when you feel it in your bones, when it settles into you like something you have always known but somehow forgot, everything changes. Because here is what most people have never been told. Your mind is not locked inside your skull. Your thoughts are not private little events that happen in isolation, that begin and end within the walls of your own head. No. What you hold in your consciousness, what you feel, what you assume, what you believe about another person, that is not staying inside you. It is reaching them right now, in this moment. As you sit here and listen to these words, whatever you are holding in your heart about this person, whatever you are feeling when you think of them, they are being touched by it. Not tomorrow, not when you finally send that message or make that call. Now, this is not poetry. This is not a comforting idea invented to make you feel better. This is the most fundamental truth about the nature of reality that most human beings walk their entire lives never discovering. Consciousness is the only reality. There is one mind, one infinite mind, and every single person you have ever known, every soul that has ever touched your life, they are not separate from you in the way your eyes make it appear. The distance you see between you and your specific person, the miles, the silence, the time that has passed, that is all happening on the surface, on the outside, in the world of shadows and appearances. But underneath that surface, there is no distance at all. Think about this. Have you ever thought of someone deeply, truly held them in your mind with feeling, with warmth, with longing, and then shortly after they reached out, they texted, they called, they showed up in some way that made you stop and think, how did that happen? That was not coincidence. That was consciousness doing exactly what it always does. You see, your specific person is not just a physical body walking around in a physical world, completely cut off from you. They are first and foremost a being of consciousness, and consciousness responds. It receives. It feels impressions that have no physical explanation, that arrive through no logical channel, that cannot be tracked or measured, and yet they are absolutely real. When you think of them with love, they feel something, even if they do not know why. When you hold them in your imagination as someone who is drawn to you, who misses you, who cannot get you out of their mind, that is not fantasy. That is you sending something real into the one mind that connects you both. And here is what breaks people, what keeps them stuck and suffering for months and years. They spend their time thinking about their SP with fear, with longing that has desperation underneath it, with the silent aching question of why haven't they come back? And that feeling, that frequency of lack, of separation, of pain, that is what keeps reaching them, not your love, not your desire, your doubt. Your doubt is loud, your fear is loud, and it has been speaking on your behalf without your permission for a very long time. But the moment you understand that your thoughts are already traveling, the moment you take that seriously, you stop sending fear. You start sending something different. You start sending certainty. And certainty, held deeply and consistently in your consciousness, is something your specific person cannot resist. Not because you are forcing them, not because you are manipulating anything, but because you are finally speaking the only language the universe has ever understood. The language of a mind that has already decided. And that decision, that moment when something inside you shifts from hoping to knowing, that is where everything begins to move. But before we talk about how to hold that state, I want you to understand something even deeper. Because most people ask this question. They ask it quietly, sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes in the middle of a crowd. Why can they not forget me? Why, after everything, after the silence, after the distance, after all the time that has passed, why does this person still carry you? Why do you show up in their thoughts uninvited? Why can they build an entire life around moving forward and still find you standing in the middle of it? This is not random. This is not sentiment. There is a law behind this, a law as precise and reliable as gravity. And once you understand it, you will never again look at their restlessness as confusion. You will recognize it for exactly what it is. Let me take you back to something you already know. Every single experience you have ever had, every feeling, every moment, every exchange that carried real emotional weight, it did not disappear when it ended. It was impressed. Pressed into consciousness like a seal into warm wax. And what is impressed into consciousness does not leave. It lives. It continues to generate. It continues to attract experiences that match its frequency. Now think about what you and this person shared, not the surface things, not the dates or the conversations or the ordinary moments. Think about the feeling. Think about what it felt like to be truly seen by them. What it felt like when they looked at you in that specific way that no one else ever quite replicated. Think about the depth of what passed between you, because that depth was not casual. That depth left a mark, and that mark is still in them. This is why they cannot forget you. Not because they are weak, not because they are confused, but because what you planted in their consciousness through genuine feeling and genuine connection, that does not get erased by time or distance or decision. It stays, it pulses. It rises to the surface when they least expect it, and reminds them of something they cannot name but cannot deny. You are written in them. And here is the part that most people never reach. The part that changes everything when you finally see it clearly. Their restlessness is not a sign that they are lost. Their inability to forget you is not a burden they are carrying. It is a signal. It is the inner self, the deeper self that knows no separation, that operates beneath all the noise of the conscious mind. It is that self, rising up and pointing toward what is true. What is true is that the connection between you was never just emotional. It was never just physical. It was written at a level of consciousness so deep that no surface level decision can reach it and undo it. They can tell themselves they have moved on. They can build routines around your absence. They can fill their days with noise and motion and distraction. And then one quiet evening, with no warning, with no trigger they can point to, you will be there, in their chest, in their mind, as vivid and as real as if no time had passed at all, because the law does not care about their decisions. The law only responds to what was genuinely felt, and what was felt between you, that lives in a place where time has absolutely no authority. Their forgetting was always an illusion. The remembering was always the truth. And if the remembering was always the truth, then everything you have been feeling, everything you have been sensing about this person, every quiet moment where something in you just knew they were thinking of you, that was never your imagination running wild. That was revelation. But now I want to speak to something that I know is living inside many of you right now. Because there is a feeling that comes with this journey. A feeling that most people misread entirely. And that misreading is costing them everything. You feel their pain, not always consciously. But somewhere in you, you sense that they are not okay. You sense the weight they are carrying. You feel the ache of the distance, and sometimes, in your most honest moments, you wonder if that ache is proof that things are falling apart rather than coming together. I want to dismantle that belief completely, because their pain is not a sign of failure. Their restlessness is not evidence that your manifestation is collapsing. The crying of their soul, that deep, unexplainable longing they carry for you, is not the universe telling you it is over. It is the universe telling you it is almost done. Think about what happens just before dawn. The darkness does not gradually lighten. It deepens. It gets quieter and colder and heavier, and then without announcement the light comes. That moment of deepest darkness is not the absence of the sun. It is the final breath before everything changes. What your specific person is experiencing right now is that darkness before dawn. Their soul is not crying because it has lost. Their soul is crying because it knows what the mind has not yet accepted. Because there is a part of them, the deepest, most honest part, that is already aware of what is coming, that is already leaning toward you, that is already moving in the direction of return. And that movement, that pull, creates an intensity inside them that the surface mind interprets as pain. But it is not pain, it is pressure. The pressure of a truth that is pushing its way through every wall they have built. The pressure of a feeling that refuses to be filed away and forgotten. The pressure of consciousness doing exactly what you have been asking it to do. Rearranging, reshaping, redirecting, from the inside out. You see, manifestation does not always look peaceful in the other person before it arrives. Sometimes it looks like restlessness. Sometimes it looks like distraction. Sometimes it looks like a person who cannot quite settle, who cannot quite commit to the life they are trying to build without you, who finds themselves standing in the middle of their carefully constructed distance and feeling hollow. That hollowness is yours. You created that space. Your consciousness, your assumption, your unwavering sense of this connection, it has been working inside them, persistently, the way water works on stone, not with force but with consistency. And the result is that space inside them that nothing else can fill. Every person they meet who is not you confirms it. Every moment of laughter that fades too quickly confirms it. Every night that ends with them staring at the ceiling, not quite able to name what is missing, that is confirmation, not of loss, not of impossibility, but of the fact that what you have been holding in your consciousness has already taken root in theirs. The work is happening. The shift is real. The movement toward you has already begun at a level far deeper than anything visible to the human eye. So do not mourn their ache. Recognize it. Because a soul that cries your name is not a soul that has let you go. It is a soul that is finding its way back home. And when you recognize it, when you stop looking at their silence as abandonment and to start reading it as movement, something profound begins to happen inside you as well. You begin to settle. And that settling, that shift from anxious reaching to quiet knowing, is not just an emotional relief. It is one of the most powerful things you can do for your manifestation. Because I need to tell you something that goes against every instinct you have been following. The chasing is working against you. I know that sounds hard to hear, because the chasing comes from love. It comes from that place in you that cares so deeply, that wants so badly, that feels the distance so painfully that every cell in your body screams, do something, say something, reach out, try again, make them see, make them feel, make them come back. But here is what that energy is actually communicating. Every text sent from desperation, every call made from fear, every action taken from the state of lacking them, all of it carries one single message beneath it. And that message is, I do not have you. You are away from me. There is a gap between us and I am terrified of it. And consciousness, theirs and yours, responds to that message perfectly. It maintains the gap because you cannot send the frequency of absence and receive the experience of presence. It does not work that way. The law does not negotiate. It does not say, well, they really love this person, so let me make an exception. It simply reflects, faithfully, precisely, without judgment. What you send is what returns. Now think about what happens when you become still, not defeated, not giving up, not the kind of stillness that comes from hopelessness. I am talking about a completely different quality of stillness. The stillness of someone who already has what they want. The stillness of someone who is so certain of the outcome that there is nothing left to chase, nothing left to prove, nothing left to force. That stillness has a completely different energy. It is full. It is grounded. It is quiet in the way that deep water is quiet. Not because nothing is there, but because everything is settled. And when you carry that stillness, when you stop flooding the space between you with anxious reaching, something extraordinary happens. They feel you more, not less. More, because you are no longer pushing. You are no longer creating that resistance that desperation always generates. You are simply being, fully, quietly, powerfully being, the version of you that already exists in the reality where this is done. And that version of you is magnetic in a way that chasing never was and never will be. Think about this in the most human terms possible. Think about the people in your life who have always made you feel the most drawn to them. Were they the ones reaching and grasping and needing your attention at every moment? Or were they the ones who were so completely present in themselves, so settled in who they were, that something in you naturally wanted to move toward them? You already know the answer. Your specific person is no different. The moment you stop chasing the image of them in the outer world and start living from the feeling of already having them in your inner world, the outer world begins to rearrange itself around that feeling, slowly. Then suddenly, in ways you could not have engineered through any amount of effort or strategy, because stillness is not passive. Stillness is the most active state you can occupy. It is the state where you stop running toward what you want and simply become the person it was always running toward, and becoming that person. That is not something that happens to you. That is something you choose, deliberately, consciously. in the ordinary moments of your ordinary day, with no audience, with no evidence, with nothing in the outer world yet confirming what you are choosing to believe. That choice has a name. It is called assumption. And I want to talk to you about assumption in a way that goes deeper than you have probably heard before. Because most people understand it on the surface. They hear, assume it is done, and they try. They repeat affirmations. They make vision boards. They tell themselves the story they want to believe. And then they look at their phone and there is no message. They look at their life and nothing has changed. And the assumption collapses under the weight of what their eyes are showing them. Because they were assuming with their mind, but still feeling with their fear. Real assumption is not a thought. Real assumption is a state. It is the difference between saying the words, "it is done," and actually living from a place where it is done. There is a world of difference between those two things. And that difference is everything. Let me show you what I mean. Think about something in your life that you are completely certain about. Something you never question. Maybe it is that you have a home to return to tonight. Maybe it is that someone in your life loves you without condition. You do not walk around affirming these things. You do not remind yourself of them every hour. They simply live in you as a settled background certainty, quiet, unshakable, requiring no maintenance. That is the state I am asking you to find with your specific person, not performance, not effort, not the exhausting work of convincing yourself every morning, but a genuine, settled inner knowing that this is done, that they are yours, that the connection is real and the return is inevitable, not because you are forcing it, but because at the level of consciousness where all things are created, it is already so. Now, how do you actually hold that state? You hold it by catching yourself in the moments when you drift from it, and you will drift. That is not failure. That is human. The mind wanders back to the evidence of the outer world. It picks up the silence and starts building stories from it. It finds the gap and begins to fill it with fear. The practice is noticing that drift and returning, not with force, not with self-criticism, simply returning to the feeling of the wish fulfilled the way you would return to a warm room after stepping briefly into the cold. Gently, naturally, as if that state is your home, because it is. You hold it in the small moments of your day. In the morning before the world rushes in, spend one quiet minute feeling what it feels like to already have this. Not imagining a grand reunion, not constructing a dramatic scene, just feeling the simple, warm, settled reality of, they are mine and I am theirs and all is well between us. That feeling, held consistently, returned to faithfully, begins to harden into conviction. And conviction is what moves people, not words, not actions, not strategy. Conviction carried in consciousness crosses every distance, dismantles every wall, reaches past every defense your specific person has ever built, and touches something in them that their logic has no power over. Because you are not speaking to their mind, you are speaking to the part of them that already knows. And that part of them has never once stopped listening. And that part of them, the part that has never stopped listening, is not passive. It is not waiting. It is not simply receiving what you send and filing it away somewhere in the quiet corners of their being. No, it is responding. It is shifting. It is reorganizing everything they think they feel, everything they believe they want, everything they tell themselves about you. And it is doing this not because they decided to, not because they sat down one day and chose to feel differently, but because you changed, because something in you settled, because the author picked up the pen again and began writing with certainty instead of fear. You see, most people think of their specific person as someone separate from them, someone out there living their own life, making their own choices, governed by their own thoughts and feelings and history. And on the surface, yes, that is what it looks like. But I am not talking about the surface. I have never been talking about the surface. I am talking about the only level where anything real ever happens, the level of consciousness. And at that level, there is no separation. At that level, your specific person is not outside of you. They are a living character in the story you are telling. And the story you are telling about them is the only thing governing what they do, what they feel, and where they go. Think about that for a moment. Really sit with it. Every version of them you have ever experienced, every word they said, every silence they gave you, every moment of warmth and every moment of distance, came through the filter of your own assumptions about them. When you believed they loved you, they showed you love. When you began to doubt, the doubt found its evidence. When fear took over the narration, the story began to read like loss. This is not coincidence. This is not cruelty. This is the law, operating with absolute faithfulness, giving you on the outside exactly what you are holding on the inside. So when I tell you the return is inevitable, I am not offering you comfort. I am not giving you something soft to hold on to in a hard moment. I am telling you a fact about how reality is constructed. The return is inevitable because you are the author. And an author does not beg their characters to behave differently. An author does not chase the story down a road it was never written to travel. An author sits down, revises the manuscript, and the character, without argument, without resistance, without even knowing why, begins to move in the direction the story now demands. Your specific person is already moving. You may not see it yet. The outer world is always the last place the shift appears. It is a shadow cast by the light of what you are holding inwardly. But the shift is happening. In the moments they go quiet and do not fully understand why. In the thoughts that surface at night when all their defenses are down and something pulls in your direction before they can reason it away. In the inexplicable softening that happens in people who told themselves they were done and then found they were not done at all. That is not accident. That is authorship, and you have always had it. You have always been writing this story. The only question that has ever mattered is whether you are writing it consciously or writing it by default. Whether the pen is in your hand with intention or whether you handed it over to fear and called that helplessness. Take the pen back. You were never meant to put it down. And so I leave you with this, not as a closing, not as a farewell, but as a beginning. The person you love is not lost. The connection you feel is not imagined. The pull that refuses to leave you, that survives every logical argument you make against it, that rises again every time you think you have buried it. That is not weakness. That is knowing. Deep, unshakable, consciousness level. Knowing that this story is not finished. And it will not finish the way fear has been narrating it. It will finish the way you, in your most settled, most certain, most quietly powerful moments, have always known it would. Go inward. Stay there. Write the ending you know is true. And then watch. With the calm confidence of someone who has never once doubted the sunrise, as everything on the outside begins to rearrange itself around the reality you have already chosen within.